I'm often thinking about creativity and what goes on in the mind. And as a photographer, both street photographer and landscape photographer, portrait photographer, it doesn't matter what you're doing, but everything we look at, we create a map in the mind of it. And this is where creativity comes into being creative. We're always working with memory. So when we're looking at objects and things and thinking about how to compose them, thinking about the colours, lines, shapes and reflections. And with that, we begin to build a memory of what we're looking at. And it's because of this, the good idea to spend time looking at something first before you take the shot and not be so rapid about it, but looking at a big area is how I look at it. I'll go down to maybe the main station of Berlin, hang around there for a bit. I'll be looking how the light is hitting the big building. I'll be looking how the light is hitting the street. Start thinking about the pallor of people's faces. It's March. And this morning, for example, it was freezing bloody cold. I was out there and I didn't last 45 minutes before I thought, this is too bloody icy. It was just unexpected. It was one of those days because the last couple of days it was getting milder. We had sunshine, it looked beautiful, and I was making plans. And I had to go to the east-west street to see if anything was going on there. And I got one or two shots. But the point is that I then went down to a beautiful structured area behind the station where the river is. And where the river is, there's a big bridge. And it's used for people to walk across and trains to go across. And so it's a very busy place, and there's all types of girders and crossed beams, and it's all that real heavy 20th century industrial steel with massive bolts in it and things like this. The light wasn't brilliant, but there were patches of sunlight, and the sun was rising, of course, but there were bits and pieces there where I could figure out a beautiful little composition that for me was worth taking. But the thing about it is this, I took a shot like this particular one and I liked it, and I knew there was something in there. It connected with something in my mind, which was probably all the components that I'd been looking at and then built up, put into memory. And then I took 3 or 4 shots, and then I chose one in post-processing and thought, well, that's a nice shot that sort of shows me a nice March morning. And when I return to that same spot and start looking through the girders, which are very complex, my memory will also kick in immediately, and that creativity will be more developed. It will be there already. There'll be it's like having pre-knowledge. It's like when you learn a language, one of the best things to do when you do a reading or something is to have some pre-knowledge of the vocabulary in it. And so when I'm standing in front of a very complex structure of industrial engineering, if I know something about it and how it should go, my brain will actually start putting things together much more quickly. And that's how we end up getting really cool shots. There's a lot happening, a lot moving, such as the sun, the light, the shadows, and people, hopefully. But it's all in the nature of creativity, and we make the choices that are personal choices from the possibilities that are in front of us. And so this idea of standing and looking, observing, of sopping it up and trying to find the poetry in something that at first might feel too complex. And for me, I'm very analytical, I'm very creative, very analytical, and apparently that's 2 different sides of the brain, but they seem to work for me, and I love to analyse things deeply, and that way I discover in a very complex situation how I can make something out of it. You know, it's always that old word, intention. To have a strong artistic intention, it's the basis of our motivation, meaning we'll feel much more motivated when we know that we have an intention and what we want to hit. And that again comes when we've spent time looking at the subject. And when we look at the subject, we know more about it, and then we know more about how it connects to the intention we have and what our capabilities are, and what we want to actually make of it. And so in doing that, this helps me when I'm out, at least walking around the streets looking for something, freezing fingers. It helps me to sort of drill down to the nitty-gritty of what I'm looking at, all this analysis of what I'm doing. And it might be 10 minutes or 15 minutes. It might actually be a situation where the amount of times I stand and look at something you know, and I'm there 5 minutes looking and observing and figuring out compositions in my mind, and then I take a shot to test the light, and then I try and compose a shot, and I take a shot, and I might be fairly happy with it, but then as I walk away and think, well, I like that, and I might do a big round the block walk, take a few shots and see things that are very spontaneous that you know you can shoot, such as, you know, colour, people moving, that type of thing. And then I come back around to where I was maybe half an hour later, and it really helps me to suddenly I feel like I'm very familiar with what I'm looking at, even though it was a very complex situation. In spite of all this, very often, I think most of us feel that if we do street photography, landscape photography, we can go out there and we're just following our nose. But we know within ourselves somewhere, there's this massive motivation to take great shots. And so we know that the map of the mind, that creative map, is taking us somewhere. We'll see it when we go out there. And this is where creative faith comes in. You know, the idea of faith in yourself as a creative person, as a photographer, that when you get out there, you're going to see something, even on the most mundane day, the dullest day, or the brightest day at the midday or something where everything's bleached. There's something in there. It's just the life of being a creative, artistic photographer. You know you can make something out of something. You can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. I mean, what we do is we're out there looking for everyday things that are happening, normally little actions or combinations of objects and things. Like some people like to walk around looking for torn posters that have got colour in them, and the tears create compositions. And so it's a bit like looking at faces in the clouds, and then you take a shot and you see, there you go, that's a really beautiful shot of a torn up poster. I love those, and I haven't really done them myself, but I think it's partly because here in Berlin, people don't tear posters down. You walk around and very occasionally would you see torn up posters. I'm one of these people, I try to avoid any commercial signage in my photography. You know, it could be bright and beautiful, it could be yellow and cadmium yellow, it could be bright cadmium reds, you know, really bang, popping colours on the street there. But unfortunately, it's some big chain of shops, and it's got nothing to do with my composition. I don't want the name there or the logo as my composition. It's really important that when we know we've got a strong intention and we're out there, and that intention can be, this is what I like to photograph, this is what I'm looking for, and it could be like that over a period of 6 months or a year or so, that you have the same intention. You're always looking to do the same thing. But every time we go out there on the street and we start walking, taking photos, really, we start off following our nose. We're a bit, you know, you get that feeling of being a little bit lost. And that is a very good thing, because that is the start of creativity. You have to allow your mind to start making stuff up, looking at things and creating things. And then suddenly it clicks. And myself, like many other photographers who do street photography, you get out there and within about 10 minutes you've been walking with camera in hand, you're looking, that's great. But then you think, well, the best thing to do is take a photo. So take a photo, and suddenly you're looking at it in the proper frame of how a photo should look on the back of the LCD. And that gives you a few more ideas, and that sort of thing triggers ideas in your mind about, you know, what to look for today. And I do that, and I find it helps a lot. Even a couple of crappy shots that I just tell myself, I just want to see what the light is like or the perspective is like. There's no people about, but I have to go somewhere where there are people, because it's going to be a bit more interesting if I can just get tiny little figures into my photos, because I don't do street portraits here, not allowed, big time, not allowed in Berlin. You know, one of the things about being creative is that you've got to do it from the heart. If you think you can do this on an academic basis and it's not an artistic pursuit, urban photography, street photography, you know, really it's got to come from the heart. If you don't like doing it and you're just trying to do it to get some nice shots because you think it'd be a cool idea, then you'll probably find that you should be doing a different type of photography. You know, it is something that you're driven to do for some reason, and it's not a good idea to keep asking yourself, why do I do this? If you find that you have that drive in you to go out and take street photos, then do it and enjoy it, and you'll discover that they have a use. You can create compositions that you wouldn't call street photography, you just call it photography, and some people might just like to buy these compositions. You just got to look at the sort of things that people hang in their homes and their offices, and you'll see that street photography, very well done street photography, fits just fine into an office or a home. When you're using your memory as a tool in photography, and you stop and look, and before you close the shutter, you stop, look, and just sop it up as if you're enjoying a meal. Just all the colours and the reflections and the textures, especially, because it's steel, brick, tarmac. It's textures of people's clothes, but textures and colours. You sop up all that, the textures of brickwork and the streets and the steel and the dark glass and things like this. All of that is sopping up, going into memory. So it's creative people, as we are, we make connections. And so what we're doing is gathering all these facts which are giving us this pre-knowledge of what we're looking at. And then we start making connections. That can happen very easily. And the thing about it is what I said before about maybe taking a couple of shots of something that might be very complex, and then going for a walk around the block, 20 minutes later, come back, and it seems better. And it's that thing about allowing the subconscious to deal with a few problems that you couldn't figure out. Because you ain't going to figure it out with words or anything like that. It's something that is very deep and natural and beyond words. That's what photography is. And you might just discover that something happened in here. Don't know what it is, but it works, and that is creativity. That's how it works. Connections were made, and when you looked the second time, suddenly you saw it. The way the light was hitting it, where the perspective went, and you saw some colours that weren't there before, but they are now. Strangely, the brain can delete things and think that they're not important, and you don't see them first time. Second time round they're there, and you think, wow, I didn't see that half an hour ago. And now you take the shot, and it's a real humdinger of a shot. A lot of this has to do with focus, which is isolating an idea and analysing it pictorially rather than words. I keep saying that, but words don't help with photography. Doing and taking the shot does. Analysing shots, analysing the scene in front of you, watching the light, maybe if it's moving, looking how shadows sweep across an area with the hard or sharp edges on the shadows, and how intense the light is. All of this is analysis of what you're looking at, including the structure. This is all information, and you're isolating something, and it all can happen within a few minutes, or a long time of 15 or 20 minutes. Maybe you keep pondering it and going back and forth. Or it could happen in a second when you see something, and that's the instinct of the photographer, that you're out and about and you have one of those days where you just take shots very rapidly because you keep seeing things happening, and you do get those days. And astonishingly, when you look at the photos later, you realise that they were very well observed shots, but it felt like at the time that you were just snap shooting. But it does sometimes, and then other times you put a lot of effort into it and you get one or two great shots, but you see that you fluffed it quite a lot because maybe we were overthinking the idea. So it's all a matter of balance of the mind, of the thought, of what you're looking at and what you want to do. Intentions. So when you know what you want, you'll probably end up getting it. Sum it up by saying that a strong artistic photographic intention, we put all the functioning parts of our creative process into one place together, and they begin to function in harmony, but they're under positive tension, and the positive tension is that pressure to get a great photo. And it's just like in a musical progression. You imagine if you listen to a musical progression, any type of music, but when there's a tension there to keep it going and keep it rolling, that's what partly makes music very interesting, because it moves into the next movement, the next part, very quickly and very easily and smoothly. And that's how we function in the brain when we're using a camera out in the street. We're looking for great shots, is that everything is clicking and functioning as this creative harmony. And that in conjunction with our intention. And the whole point is that we have to work on these things, know what we want. So maybe, studying other people's work, great photographers' work, great artists, painters as well, people who draw as well, just pencil and sketches, that type of thing. Anything artistic. But also, you know, I'm the type of person, I can listen to music, good music, and I can associate it with the practice of photography because I'm looking at composition in the music, if I become very conscious of it. And I see how things are rising and falling and how things are expanding as well in music and creating much more presence. And I can somehow, in an abstract way, relate that also to photography and looking at a visual experience. So thinking about working on intention, taking your time to look at motives when you're walking around, and maybe you just want to try that out, which is something I do, which I said earlier, and the main point is take a few shots of something after you've looked at it, analysed it and thought of it. It might be a complex situation. Then take a walk, go off, take some other shots somewhere else, come back a bit later, 30 minutes later, and then go for it again, but with full intention, which means high motivation and the will to do it. And you might just discover that all that pre-knowledge that you built up 30 minutes earlier helps you create a better photo half an hour later. Otherwise, we all know that street photography can be walking around town, taking shots. Some are good, some are bad. We like the colour, the sunshine, the hard shadows, geometrical shapes, all the rest of it. And I wish you a lovely week ahead, and let's all hope that March is going to bring us a bit more sunshine and milder days. But the sun is certainly coming out again, and that makes me... So if you like what you're listening to, I really hope that you subscribe to the channel. I'll do my best to make it really interesting. I'm a one-man band. Hope you enjoyed it. All the best, and see you next time. Bye-bye.